So very quick today. Last time we had a long conversation. A lot of developments today. We've had the UK, Canada, Australia, and Portugal recognize a Palestinian state. Obviously, Israel condemns this. Now we've got 154 countries that recognize a Palestinian state. Would love to get your initial reaction, but more importantly, because obviously we would know what your stance is. I'd love you to give us your reaction, but also what solution you propose if not recognizing a Palestinian state.
While President Macron and his colleagues will celebrate here today, we will remember the 48 hostages still in Gaza. We know it's a circus, it's a show, it's detached from reality, it's not going anywhere. And the fact is that Hamas is still in Gaza and Israel is committed to finish the job. You know, everybody here at the UN speak about the day after without Hamas, but no one is actually taking the action. Israel is taking the action, and we are committed to bring all the hostages back and to get rid of Hamas. It's not going to be easy. We accomplished a lot, but that will be the first stage. Then we can discuss, you know, reconstruction. We can discuss, you know, maybe international force coming to support the population. But first, we have to clean up. We have to make sure Hamas is not in power. So to speak today about a Palestinian state, it's detached from reality. We all know it's not going to happen. You know, probably it serves domestic political needs of leaders, but it's not going to support the peace process nor the Palestinians.
Mr. Ambassador, do you think there'll ever be a Palestinian state?
Well, you know, after October 7th, you know, we will make sure that our security is first priority. You know, before October 7th, we had a debate in Israel about that. You had people from the left who supported the Palestinian state, people from the right who opposed it. Today, we don't have an argument. We know that security is above all. And when we look at what happened in Gaza, you know, we left Gaza 20 years ago, and it became a terror center in the region. So if you put a state that will be controlled by terrorists, that's not going to happen. So I think now we have to focus about dismantling Hamas, bringing the hostages, and in the future, once there will be a viable partner, a peaceful one, we would sit down and negotiate the same way we did with so many Arab countries. But we are not going to allow the UN to dictate the results from here.
Yeah, I think it's debatable in terms of normalizing relations with Syria, with Lebanon. We're seeing a lot of talk about these things progressing, like we saw with Jordan and Egypt. So I'm very optimistic there. But what's the future look like for Palestine, for West Bank, for Gaza?
Well, there's a long process. You know, the long process. You know, first you have to make sure Hamas is not in charge in Gaza. When you speak about Judea and Samaria, you know, we have seen the weakness of the Palestinian Authority. You know, the glorified terrorism. They still have the pay-to-slay policy, that they pay salaries to convicted murderers and their families. So they have to choose whether they want to be accepted by the world, not only by declaration, but they actually have to fight evil, fight radicals. And when you look at the Middle East today, Mario, and you know it very well, you have countries where you have some kind of law and order with strong leadership, and you have chaotic areas where radical Islam is taking over. Look what happened to Syria, what happened in Yemen, in Libya. So, you know, with the PA, no one knows where they're heading.
I've got 3 more quick questions for today. First one, what about relations for Syria and Lebanon? Are you more optimistic on those?
Absolutely. I think with Lebanon, we saw the recent statements, and we congratulate the new government for taking a strong stand against Hezbollah. I hope they will have the resolve to make it happen. You know, we want a peaceful border with Lebanon. We appreciate the relationship with the government, and the more involvement we will see of the new government, it will allow us to pull out and not to take action against Hezbollah. Same goes with Syria. We're waiting to hear President Giuliani's statement on Wednesday. We have talks with Syria on different aspects, and I think it's important to see his words and our Prime Minister's words on Friday.
The last 2 things I want to ask you about. First, the UAE and Saudi have escalated their threats. Saudi said they warned of major implications on all levels if Israel annexes the West Bank, which include ending the normalization prospects, closing airspace, and straining ties with the US, Israel's biggest backer. Your reaction to those statements, and also we saw a few days ago the UAE make similar statements.
So with the UAE, we have a very strong peace accord, even when it's challenging times for both sides. The accord is valid, and we appreciate that. We continue the dialogue with them. And with the Saudis, I believe we're going to have an accord in the future. So we haven't decided about any steps yet. Prime Minister will take this issue to the government only when he gets back after he will meet President Trump. And I think we will have a dialogue. We will have an open dialogue with our allies.
And the last thing I want to ask you about, Mr. Ambassador, something that happened since we last spoke, something that shocked me more than the Iran war, more than everything since October 7th, really, is the strike on Qatar. That was a US ally. I understand they're harboring Hamas. I understand Israel's position, but that comes at a great cost for Israel, but even more so the US. And we saw the announcement of the Saudi and Pakistani Defense Pact. I know they've been discussing this for a while, but it came days after, or weeks after the Qatar strike. Are you worried about the repercussions of that strike?
There is no immunity for terrorists, period. You know, the same way that the US attacked Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, that France is attacking a terrorist in Africa, that the UK attacked ISIS in Syria, we took action not against Qatar, against Hamas in Qatar. We will hunt them down. Anyone who was involved in October 7th massacre, we will find him. He will not be able to hide himself, no matter where he is. That is the message we wanted to send, and I think it was sent. And we continue the dialogue. We will make it very clear. We speak with the Qataris. You know, we support, you know, their initiatives with the negotiations, and we thank them for their initiatives. But at the same time, we cannot allow Hamas leaders to hide nowhere.
But we draw the line, for example, if there's a Hamas member you find out that's sitting in California, I'm sure there won't be Israeli jets striking that target in California. There is red lines. This is an assumption I'm making, of course. Where would you, is there any red lines that will be drawn? Because I expected Qatar to be a red line. If you target them, you might target them the same way you targeted Mossad targeted members here in the UAE. I think, I don't know if members of Hamas or some other organization at the time, but not through, you know, missile strikes. Would there be any red lines, any message for the Arab world that we would not cross certain red lines? Like, for example, won't hit any Hamas targets in Saudi or in Turkey or in Egypt, for example?
One should ask himself a different question, Mario. Why they were hiding in Qatar? Why they harbored terrorists? Why they gave them shelter? That is a question to be asked, not why Israel attacked or how we attacked. You know, when you go back to the Munich attack that took place in the 70s, it took us a few years to find those people behind the massacre, and we found them in different locations. Same here. We have the list, we have the names, they will pay the price. You know, at the same time, we have, you know, diplomatic relations with many countries. We appreciate that, and we will try to minimize the problems with other countries. But the commitment to bring them to justice is 100% there.
The only difference is I think these are peace negotiators in Qatar that Israel and the US knew were there, asked Qatar to facilitate those negotiations. I think they had the opportunity to ask Qatar to expel them first before striking them. But also understand your stance, Israel's stance on this. Mr. Ambassador, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you again and hope to speak to you again soon, sir.
Thank you very much, Mario.